Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee Review. You'll notice today we've got another special guest, which means this is an Espresso Yourself episode. And we've got a really good day planned for you. It is June 27th. It's sunshiny. It's summertime. Let's go. So how's it going today, everybody? We'll start with you, Michael. How's it going?
It's good. Good day out here in the Grand Canyon State. We're finally starting to get hotter again, triple digits. Well, I guess it is always 100. I mean, triple digits in terms of like 110. But I'll be taking off during that hot heat here soon. Be going to the Washington out to visit some friends. Other than that, everything's going good. Got my new badge from Credly for the BCI training. Also got accepted to Autodesk University. So for those of you Autodesk University folks that are going to be out there in November, I'll be there speaking. Other than that, good stuff. We are excited for another Espresso Self. So we will get this started. Get back to you.
So with all of our Espresso Yourselves, we're going to be bringing on a guest to join us for conversation. We're not going to make it an interview. We're not going to grill people. We're just going to have a conversation, right? So today we're really excited to have Alix join us today. Alix is new to ATG. I got to spend time with her when we were in Little Rock a couple weeks back. And the amount of experience and holy crap, was amazing to learn from Alix, and I thought this was a natural fit to bring on to MCR, because what we're trying to do here is just highlight the personalities behind what we do every day, right? Some of us come from a civil background, structural background, architectural background. We've got all these different projects that we've worked on and places that we've worked, and we're trying to highlight some things that could spark some inspiration, right? So with that, we're happy to have Alix on, and welcome to our Espresso Yourself. How's it going today?
Thank you. It's going really well, and I'm super excited to be here with both of you, and super excited to be with ATG. So our onboarding was a great experience for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Jason took over recently because Jason went from civil to what was your one prior to that one?
Doing like pre-sales.
Pre-sales, yeah, sales engineering, and then went into now more
of an L&D role in the HR team. So yeah. I've been leading the onboarding and welcoming our folks. We've got a pretty extensive onboarding program here at ATG. So Alix was a part of our group, as was George, who I see in the chat. So welcoming new ATG folks to our culture and seeing what we're doing every day.
Yeah, and I feel like I fit right in, kind of like you said. Everyone at ATG has so many exciting things that they are curious about and want to pursue. And some of the best parts is that ATG wants you to do that. They want you to be curious and to pursue those things. And that's why I'm so excited to be here. Because like you said, Jason, I've got a bit of a past, and it kind of takes a zigzag. But I know that that's why I'm supposed to be where I'm at now. So yeah, I'm happy to kind of just jump in if you want me to.
Yeah, so let's do it. So you're talking about the zigzag, talking about doing the crazy things. How did you get your start? And tell us your little story here.
Oh boy. So my start was probably rearranging my bedroom as a kid every other week, and trying to move my furniture around by myself, and drawing up plans for my parents, and coming up with material lists and budgeting it. I was always about giving like presentations to my parents. I only redid my room one time as a kid, which is probably good considering I would have redone it every other week. But so it really started there. I've always loved creating things, talking to people, problem solving. And I didn't realize you could make a career out of those things. So as I went through high school, I kind of tried a few different things, but I was always an art kid. And ended up going to community college because I decided to graduate high school a year early, which I don't necessarily recommend. I wish I would have just taken all art classes that senior year. That would have been pretty cool. But so I went to community college, and that's where I started taking some drafting classes. And I was taking more mechanical drafting classes, and I was leaning more towards industrial design. I really liked the idea of just creating products and solving problems and designing solutions, but didn't really know what any of that meant. And I was
saying mechanical, like mechanical fabrication type of style?
Yeah.
Okay.
And really getting into like some of those product design books and industrial design and things like that, and getting really into the idea of just creating things. And that's where I met the department head of the university that I ended up going to. And it was a design and drafting program. And so fortunately, I was able to learn drafting across the board in all areas of our industry, the whole kind of AEC package. But architecture always had a special place for me, and specifically interior design. And I went ahead and got my degree in design and drafting technology. And I did an internship at Burns and McDonnell, which is a very, very large engineering firm. And I enjoyed the work I was doing. I was an electrical and architectural drafts person, and I was making like one-line diagrams and placing outlets and stuff. And I really enjoyed the products, and I enjoyed all the conversations I was having with people, but I did not enjoy the work itself. It wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. So I actually went back to school.
Do you feel like it wasn't what you thought it was going to be in terms of the level you were at where you started, in terms of not having like that freedom to create and more of just being told what to design? Because I feel like as your artist roots, right, that creativity is that freedom of being able to create whatever you'd like. Like, perfect example, my new outlet, as we all know, was first plants, and then now it's tanks, but the tanks you get to design, right? And that's my new like creative outlet versus what I used to do, which was like drawing. But that creativity, do you feel like that's where it stopped you?
You know, I always thought that was the case. And only now, 8-ish years into being in the industry or industry adjacent, do I realize that I really just didn't know what I was doing. And it was less so about not being able to create, because I didn't know what to create. I didn't really know what I was actually interested in. And I definitely didn't know where I could work to get those opportunities. So that's why I went back to school and started studying interior design, and very quickly realized, at least at the school that I was at, it was really similar to like my drafting program. And although I was starting to learn about materials and different things like that, different concepts, I was starting to take more art classes because I needed to for the interior design. So then one day I just decided I'm going to be a sculptor. So I stopped going to interior design school and I became a sculptor.
So were you still at the school? You just
Yeah.
You just changed your major essentially, right?
Yep. So I was pursuing,
like, in the middle of your classes or like after the semester?
I kind of waited. So I was taking art classes while taking interior design classes. And I started working as the sculpture technician in our studio and running all the tools and like working in the wood shop, learning how to weld, pouring copper and brass. Like, it was.
Do they do welding?
Oh yeah. And I've used, like welding and I'm gonna lose what it's called now.
Brazing?
It's like a laser cutter, but it's
plasma cutter.
I was like cutting through steel. Like,
plasma cutter. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's just like all those things immediately were like, okay, clearly I love this side of things.
Did you do like pottery?
Yeah.
Like on the wheel? I've done that.
I also like to do freeform pottery. So for a while I got really into rabbits, which is weird. And I was making like these really like stretched out rabbit figures and putting clocks in them. And so my mom has one that's like hanging in our bathroom. And I just love that kind of stuff. Like anything tangible, I am here for. I want to experience it. I want to get my hands on it. And so I finished the semester and broke the news to my interior design instructors while we were volunteering at a Habitat for Humanity day where we were framing houses. And so I kind of broke the news like, hey, I'm not gonna come back like and be in any of the interior design classes. I think I'm just gonna stay and keep framing walls here. And they were like, what do you mean? I kind of joked that I was going to drop out of school. And then I actually got a job offer from Habitat from Humanity to run some of their events and stuff. And so then I was like, well, maybe I don't go to school. Maybe I just totally switch, stop doing sculpture, and I go and work for Habitat for Humanity.
And the great thing with like Habitat for Humanity, because I thought about going to Habitat for Humanity after talking to my professors when I was in school, because the pitch was, if you work there for 10 years, you can have them pay for your school, right? because I'm
Yeah.
working for a nonprofit. I think it was 10 years.
Well, here it was significantly shorter. And it was actually going to be through AmeriCorps.
Mhm.
And it was like if you did one 12-month stint with them, you'd get a stipend, basically like a grant to put back towards your student loan debt, which
Okay.
was great for me considering I'd already gone to school like 12 times and I was drowning in debt at that point. But I love it. I love learning, and I would have continued to go to school forever. So long story short, even though it's not short at all, but I ended up continuing sculpture and continued to go to school. I did not go work for AmeriCorps, though it did sit in the back of my mind for a really long time. And about like 6 months later, I mean, it was like one semester, my now husband had he was going to pursue a master's in English and philosophy at our school, and we lost funding because of like the governor cut funding to our school, so he lost his stipend. And so like he found that out on a Tuesday, and on Thursday I was giving a presentation for my old drafting program. I was still the president of one of the organizations, so I was still kind of involved. And I met someone from Populous. He walked up to me and shook my hand and did that real sly, like his business card was in his hand. And he's like, "Why don't you give me a call?" And I was like, "Oh, it's cool. I'm an artist. I'm a sculptor. I don't want to work like in industry. I'm not even a drafts person anymore." And he's like, "Why don't you just come check it out? Just come see." And I always knew that I wanted to work at Populous because they had a model shop at one point where they were actually building like scaled models. And so I was like, well, this is great. I could be in their model shop. And I get there and they're like, "Oh no, we got rid of that in 2009.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Emily Clark, who we'll have on at one point, she really was good at that model aspect and creating that. And she would trade like, I think this is the
Services.
right. Yeah, she would trade services that way, where she would say, you do this and I'll do this for you.
Which is why Emily and I really connected when we started talking, was because I like to build cat houses out of cardboard, and I build some really ornate ones. I've built like a brownstone townhome, an A-frame cabin. I'm working on kind of like a 50s summer house right now. And so I was kind of just telling her about that, and she goes, "Oh no, I didn't build anything in school. I could not cut with an X-Acto knife to save my life. So I would trade architectural services with people, and I would put all their stuff in CAD while they would do my models." And I'm like, "That's great. If only we knew each other back then, we would have been a match made in heaven." And yeah, so that was something that I really loved. Yeah, we can definitely talk about those cat houses though.
Oh yeah, there's going to be some show and tell happening
Yeah.
later for
They
sure.
are my favorite. So this is definitely how my brain works too. This is why my life has been a zigzag, is because my brain is a zigzag. But I
feel like it's just more, because we always have those times when we're in school finding out where your passion lies, and some folks don't lean into their passion, right?
or they have a lot of passions,
True,
which is where I was at. And so I learned about kind of this topic, Renaissance soul, which it resonates with me strictly because it helps kind of break down the idea of being a quitter or being someone who's flaky. I do finish a lot of the stuff I start, but I'm very excited and I love exploring things, and I'm extremely curious. And that is why I have like certificates and everything from taxidermy to welding to like just random web design. I just like learning, and I love how it all kind of comes together. And when I went to Populous, it all clicked. It all really started like, okay, yeah, ADHD does do that. Yeah. So
so it doesn't sound like you don't finish the stuff that you start because you did get the certificates. You're just on to the next. It's like a next page in the book where you're not referring. And maybe it does like impact you moving forward in what you're doing, but you're quickly to turn the next page versus applying it to what you got it for, right? Like welding or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And usually it's like, oh, I know how to weld, so maybe I know how to solder, so I'll just get into stained glass now. Like, it's usually that kind of stuff. I'll just keep exploring and digging and seeing how things can relate in different ways. And I love it. And so at Populous, that's where my career really started. And I was hired as a BIM technician, where I was going to be assisting teams and be in a production role. And the idea was never to pick up like red lines necessarily, but it was to sort of be just that support system behind the scenes. And it evolved very quickly because of my desires to explore other things. So within 6 months, I was asked to build our learning development platform or learning management system. And I had never done that before, but they
What's
said,
a learning management system?
yes, so learning management system essentially houses all of your learning content. And we were also building it out to where, yes, they can be a monster for sure. We were building it out to where it could host all of our content. People could access it and enroll in classes. We could track their attendance. We could track their learning credits, different things like that. So it's essentially just a system that manages kind of all of the information.
So it's like an e-learning platform, essentially, is what you're creating.
Yes, but we
like
also
a repository.
Yeah, we hosted all of our instructor-led training in there as well, so that people could go enroll themselves when they knew like that training was coming up. So it was like just a map of all of the training we were going to offer, including all of the e-learning, which was, we had it tied to LinkedIn Learning, or Linda. It was Linda at first. We were starting.
Do you like the LinkedIn courses?
I do. I like them because they always have, not always, I guess usually they have exercise files with them, which for someone like me, that practicality is so key. I want to be able to apply what I'm watching or learning.
Yeah, we'll talk about that with Scott, who will come on and talk about adult learning, but that's part of adult learning in how we digest the information, and then we also imprint it by replicating it or practicing it, right? Like, as much, I remember back in the day when we were younger, like, I don't want to practice, just want to listen. You know? But just that adult, when we're more sponge and we're able to actually receive that information from a verbal perspective, but as becoming adults, right, reaffirming that verbal information by also practicing it, right? Because we're translating that information from it being received as part of that adult learning process, and how adults learn comparative to more of that child spongy aspect.
And maybe that's why I am starting to feel more confident in what it is that I'm doing, because what I'm doing is learning. That's what I've realized. I'm not really trying to do anything. I am being that sponge again, but in a way where I have that confidence and actual intellectual ability to kind of absorb some of this stuff. And so once I kind of moved away from what's my perfect job, what's this role that I can do that's going to satisfy all of these aspects of myself, it really switched to what is it that I'm doing that I enjoy, and it's solving problems. And at Populous, that's what I did every day, all day, was solve problems. Ayo, I see some Populous people in the chat. And I definitely want to give all of them a shout out, because the team that we had was incredible. It really was like, we all had different experiences, and we all had different technical abilities and things like that. And so I really learned how to build a team around everyone's kind of strategy, I guess. Like, it was just a different approach. Instead of being in a classroom where everyone in the class is learning what I'm learning and we're all pursuing the same thing. Like Johanna, who's in the chat, she came back from an interior design background, and I was coming more from like, the artsy and drafting background. And then we also had someone who came from a BIM management background, and someone who went to school for architecture. She didn't go and get licensed, and she also didn't want to pursue architecture, but she was in the same boat that like I was, where she likes all this stuff, but didn't want to like do that work with it. So as our team grew, I was growing and learning all the different things that an organization needs to have happen. And that kind of turned into, how can we just start solving problems that are internal and external, and where do we go from there? And that's where I started learning how to program. And so I learned Dynamo. I started learning Power Apps, which is a Microsoft product. And that led me into building several applications for Populous in-house that improved workflows tremendously. And I was extremely excited when I was then asked to develop an app for the Super Bowl. And that was a shock a bit, but to give some context, Populous does work on the Super Bowl, and they do most of the large sporting events around the world, honestly. And so the app that I built, I utilized Power Apps again because it was a Microsoft product that they already had, and there were all these security concerns.
So yeah, I guess let's step back. So team members, I was going to use the puzzle analogy, right? So we're trying to create a puzzle to solve the solution, to solve the problem. And that's kind of that mentality of bringing the right pieces into that puzzle to create the end goal. And that's typically with most things, right? Very seldom. I mean, like the Elon Musks that have most of the solutions, but still he brings a team together for his end goal, right, to solve that solution. Same kind of mentality of like bringing all those specific puzzle pieces. People have their own expertise in different ways to help, fine tune and then solve the problem. But so why did you use that specific platform? Was it because you were already using Microsoft products? Did you look elsewhere outside of Microsoft realm?
I used Microsoft because the client, NFL, was using Microsoft. We knew we needed a secure product, and we didn't have a lot of money or time, which is usually the case. And I was already familiar with it, and I knew / assumed / decided I was going to figure out how to make it do everything that they wanted. And so I always use this kind of rule in my mind. And I learned it from leadership at Populous. His name was Bob Gilchrist, and he was our operations director. He was in my very first interview. And I remember really connecting with him because we had this understanding that if something off the shelf can address 80% of what you're trying to do, and you just need to customize 20% of it, then it's likely worth purchasing and adopting. If only 20% of it is going to do what you need it to do, and you're going to have to develop 80% of it, sometimes it's worth just developing it outright. Again, kind of in context, just deciding what you're doing. So with Microsoft, it followed that same kind of philosophy. 80% of it I knew was going to do for sure what I needed it to do. And that other 20% I was going to figure out one way or another. And boy, oh boy, was that an accomplishment. And going to the Super Bowl and seeing this thing run live, and it was.
So was it 20%? Was that a hard 20% to go on the endeavor? Okay.
Yeah, because the 20% didn't actually exist in Power Apps. So what I was trying to do with it wasn't necessarily a function of it, because Power Apps is really, as David Clark in the message just said, it's a low code, no code development. It's pretty straightforward. And so there's not a ton of flexibility with what you can really make it do. So I was on calls every other day with multiple consultants who were supposed to be Microsoft experts. And it was kind of like, I don't think it can do this. I don't think it's gonna do this. I don't think
we don't like that answer.
Try to do that. Yeah. And it was like,
someone ever tells me that, I'm saying, well, we'll find a way.
And that's what the best part of it, and the most satisfying part of it, was sending the email after to each of those consultants and being like, hey, just letting you know I got it. Like, that's all I said, got it. And so that really kind of continued to spiral into what else can you do? And I loved having that support of, well, what else can you do? Do you want to do?
So was that because, I guess, so let's see, if that app didn't have the outcome that it did success wise, do you feel like that would have kind of, negated your success going forward?
I don't, but not to sound conceited, it's going to sound pretty bad. I was doing so many other things that I was having success in. So like I built the learning management system, and we were onboarding learning management administrator. I was helping lead our internal applications and technology team. And this whole time I'm doing Revit support, Dynamo support, Bluebeam support, Adobe support. I'm building custom content. I'm being, a BIM manager, while being a developer, while being a trainer, while being, all these different things. And so the app was not under my umbrella, like at all in the beginning. I was still a BIM technician at this point. And I wasn't.
Kind of sounds like more of a BIM manager role, but.
Yeah. And that's why it was touchy. I didn't want to be a technician. Again, not because anything is wrong with being a technician, but because the work that I was executing was at a different level at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
at an architecture firm, just being totally transparent, like they're pretty protective of the structure and the hierarchy and,
Yep.
Who really wears the pants, or as they said, who makes the bread, or I don't even, who wins the bread. I don't remember, and I don't care. But
those are some of the more seasoned mentality of that versus like, success and growth comes from things that, experience and things that you've done and shown versus that like mentality of, well, been here for 10 years, 20 years. That's why I have this title,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, titles it's not that important to me. It was when I was starting to go to conferences and I wanted people to take me more seriously, but I was also really young and starting my career and thinking that stuff mattered, and mattered in a way that it doesn't matter to me. It very well may matter to other people, and I am in support of that. But as I was really figuring out what my energy was going to be kind of in things, I was like, I don't think I need to be the manager. I don't want to be the manager. I want to keep doing the work. Like I want an opportunity to have that kind of senior role without having to be a manager or a designer or whatever. Like I didn't want to climb the traditional ladder that was presented to me at Populous, or really at any industry, like any architecture firm in industry. It was like, well, you're going to be a CAD manager, and then maybe you'll be the director of technology or what, maybe someday. And that's not what I wanted. And when I got connected with ATG, which was a reseller of Populous, so I already was connected with ATG. And once I started talking with everyone here and realizing that everyone has this experience, everyone's been to industry, people have tried a lot of things, they have a lot of passions, especially outside of work, but that it's all inside of work, it's celebrated as well. And when that flip switched of I can just problem solve and not have to try and sell anybody on it. Like now people come to us, ATG, for the expertise, and we get to just solve their problems. Like I love that. I'm not fighting with the board to say I need X amount of money so I can develop Y. It's people who are saying, hey, we've got this problem. We actually don't even know how to define the problem. We just know there's a problem because something's not working efficiently. What do you think? And I'll dig in, and I love it. And I love digging into that stuff, figuring it out, figuring what tools they already have that aren't being utilized. I love doing that. But don't get me wrong, I love buying a new tool too. Like I'm
we like our toys, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Because I always want to do like data forensics or cybersecurity and like mining that information. I think that's kind of where this plays into that thought process of really digging in, because folks will come to us amongst a lot of other things. But some of the things that folks come to us is we listen to what their issues are and help problem solve for them, right? From our experience.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. From our experience, which is, I also love that my coworkers, all the people I work with, have had similar experiences because we've all worked in a similar industry, but they're so different. Mm-hmm. And all of our experiences and expertise and education are so different. And I love that that's celebrated here. Like, and not that it's not celebrated other places, but I really love that it's celebrated here because I have learned that I'm not an expert of everything, and nor do I need to be an expert of everything.
No one's an expert.
Yes. Well, I thought I needed to be extremely proficient in everything at Populous because I was wearing all of these hats, and I really thought everything depended on me. I wasn't realizing the importance of what I was doing for myself anymore. And so that's why I love being on this side where I am building really complex content and
So
working really closely.
let's
with
talk
people.
about that. So, this zigzag. At what point, since these first couple of folks that we've had on our folks from ATG, right? And they're
Mhm.
on the they're in that different side of the industry, which is more of that consultant part of the industry. And we're going to start having folks as we move forward from people from industry that are still in industry, that are passionate in that industry. But these more front facing ones, you can all tell the passion comes with the folks on this side. But at what point in the industry did you feel like was a turning point where your passion for what you were doing started to no longer become present in how you were passionate and loved the industry itself? Like,
Yeah,
was there a defining moment, or was it more of just like it started to, erode your passion for it?
I would love to say that I never lost it. And then I would also love to say that I just lost it on, the last day, when I decided, this isn't for me anymore. But honestly, it had been rough from the beginning because I wasn't feeling fulfilled in all those aspects of what I was doing. And I really didn't know what this role was, this BIM technician role, because I knew I didn't want to do that type of work, but I knew Populous was a company that I could explore, and kind of see what I wanted to do there. And so my passion, I didn't even know what it was. I was trying so many things and doing so many things, and that was the exciting part. And once I realized, oh, I'm obligated to do all of these things now. It's not an opportunity anymore. I'm not
Hmm.
learning anymore. I'm just going through the motions. And I would say
So
COVID
like
was,
not a challenge maybe, or
yes, I was
okay.
not feeling challenged
Okay.
at all. And oh gosh, I hope I'm making ATG sound enticing and not something else.
Just quitting your job. Just go do something
Yeah.
else.
But
Well, no, this
so,
is all about learning about like your experiences, right? The reason why
yeah,
we're doing this is to maybe, well, we love conversation, Jason and myself, but we also, people listening in here, Spotify, YouTube on these recordings, like it strikes a chord and resonates with someone else. Like we want to let folks know, people that are extremely passionate, what more can they do? What next steps they need to take? Because they're already in the industry. They want to be there, right?
yes.
Or they're in these motions like you are right now. And like when I was in industry, I had no idea this side of the industry existed, right? So again, just letting it maybe strike a string, or maybe ruffle some feathers, either or. We're here for both. Just open conversation. So, but yeah, back to it.
Well, I can definitely ruffle some feathers.
Well, we
I'll,
won't ruffle feathers that way.
no,
Jason and I
no.
will ruffle feathers.
Yeah. But I will say that it really, from the beginning, and I don't blame this on Populous at all. I blame it on the industry. When I came in, not as an architect, I was treated differently. I was a drafts person, and they respected me, and they really appreciated the value that I did bring.
It's kind of like, I feel like it's like medicine. My wife's in medicine, so I hear this a lot. Not a lot from her, but just from people in general. And because my father-in-law is also a doctor. If you're not a doctor, if you didn't go to med school, right, you're not at that hierarchy of that person, which I completely understand from their mindset of like they went to school 8 years, whatever, however much time they did their residencies. Like I understand, I get it. I feel like where the humanity is lost is where it's more of like chin up, looking down at you all the time. Now, on this side of the fence, I haven't felt that at all. But in industry, right? I'm not a professional engineer. I didn't go and get my license. But it assumed that role when I was more in that architectural sense. And that's why I left architectural design and didn't want to counter that road of another 6-7 years of looking down upon until I finally got my license and moved to the structural side. Because the structural side, if you're not a PE, it's not like chin up looking down at you. Now, There are some folks like that out there, but
Yeah.
in my experience from the PE side and the places that I worked, we weren't treated like that. But yeah, in that mindset, there are some folks, especially on the architectural end. But then there's those outliers too, like a lot of folks that we have here at ATG that are licensed architects that don't have that mindset, right? But
Oh, yeah.
I would agree that sometimes, I would say it's about, what do you say, Arlie, like 60-40, or do you think it's less?
Oh, I'm not touching that one. I'm not going to get in trouble.
Yeah, he's
All
like,
right.
nothing's architects. Yeah.
I'll take the heat. It's probably about a 60-40 from being licensed, the licensed group of, that, what would you call it? What would you name that? Like, that ambiance of that I'm better than you, like a Frank Lloyd Wright.
This
type of
sort of
person.
arrogance to it, and some
Yeah.
of it is
Pretentious.
deserved.
Yeah.
Pretentious. There's a good way to put it. I know for my career, I started in architecture, or I started in construction and went to architecture, then went to civil, and I worked under architects, and I was like, I don't want to be one of them. I was more intrigued by the person who was like fixing the copier, still being
Yes.
a team member, somebody who's making the company run, but maybe not have their name on the door, right?
Yeah.
Because there's value in that too, that sometimes gets overshadowed. And that's what's kind of exciting about talking to you, Alex, is that moving piece, right? And I think we talked about this a little bit when we were in Arkansas. There's a time where, hey, if you're not working for the same company for 20 years, like your career's dumb. It's not worth it. But then you get people who are like, well, hey, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Following your passion and figuring out more talents is just as impressive to me, because for one, that's a bold move, right? It takes a lot of guts to make that change and give up on the progress. I was going to get up to this step of the ladder, but I want this ladder instead.
You're
right?
gonna make me cry now.
or no ladder. I think there's a stigma behind jumping around that I would love to squash, honestly, because
Exactly.
following your passion and being happy with what you do at the end of the day is all that matters in life.
Yeah. And there's people that are passionate and find their passion early and pursue it to the end, right? Those are those folks that, and maybe they're not passionate where they are, but I would say majority of people that went through the years of going to school, being in that hierarchy to earn their title, were hopefully passionate towards the end. Most, I would say, probably are. But like, that's the same thing. I'm watching Suits right now on Netflix again. My wife loves it. So I'm like, cool, I get to rewatch all of it again. But that's like lawyers, right? Again, being a lawyer, going to school, studying for the bar exam, all of those things with that title of like passion for it. But then there's those other folks that are passionate about everything and want to learn everything, and have those, tool chests that are outside of a single title. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think I thought I needed to climb that ladder, and I thought becoming an architect or an engineer was like what you had to do to get respect. And that was before I even went to school. I mean, I just thought that's how the industry works. And I decided not to do that because I did enjoy learning all of these other things. And I stayed with Populous for 6 years and was really grateful to have that stability to go and explore those things kind of outside of it. And so I did jump around, like you said, with more of the things I was interested in, but I was super grateful to be at a place that was like, jump around here, figure out how you can do it here, and figure out.
Which is rare, I feel like, in our
Yeah.
industry. In our industry, it's not. I mean, we've all encountered it, probably working somewhere where they're like, oh, it's just like adopting something like Revit. Oh, no, we've done this for 20 years.
Yes.
We're going to keep doing it for another 20.
And that's kind of the sense that I got from Populous when I first started, was like, they had an idea, and again, not trying to like big up myself, but they had an idea. And when I came in and I just started talking to them about the stuff I enjoy, they were like, well, shoot, okay, look into that, see what that can do for us. And so I'm incredibly grateful for the personality that I have, is that I want to explore and I want to have conversations with people. And I loved, like you said, Jason, leaving Populous was extremely hard because of the foundation I had built. And I knew everyone from the person fixing the copier to the person running the company. And I felt like I knew them on a fairly intimate basis. And then I was doing work for all of these people across the entire board, the lawyers, the accountants. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And then realized, well, no, there's a little bit more that I want to do. And it doesn't make sense for what Populous wants to do. They don't want to grow in this direction, but I do. So that was the reason that I was like, okay, it's time for me to go find somewhere else where I don't have to change to continue bettering wherever I'm going. And there's, I mean, no hard feelings. Like with Populous, I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing and they're good at what they do.
So
And
that's the turning point then you're saying was
yes,
that at that point you realized, Populous as a company is growing this way,
mhm,
and my love and passion for what I am now at, where I'm currently at in my mindset, is not the same direction.
which I learned was always solving problems. And I didn't know that until I interviewed at ATG, and they're like, just what do you want to do? Just what do you want to do? One thing, just say it. And I was like, solve problems, and that really stuck with Emily and Dawn. And then when I had my next interview with all of you, like with you, Michael, and everyone else, it was like the same thing. It was just a conversation because there are so many things that we're all interested in. And ATG is structured to facilitate that kind of work. Populous was making money by producing drawings and designs, and like they knew what they were doing. I'm not going to go in and change their company because I want to start developing stuff. You know what I mean? So I got this amazing foundation and experience of working in industry and knowing what the architects want and need and what their troubles are and things like that. And I'm so grateful to have all that experience and to have had to solve those problems that I didn't want to solve, but because I now can solve problems that I never even knew were problems. And I'm so grateful that I was also under, because I've seen a little bit about IT in here. I was under the IT director. And at first I was not a fan because IT and I was AT, applications and technology. So I was kind of the bridge between the architects and IT. I could speak both languages. And I'm really glad that I was, because that's why I got into development, was because I was having more of those conversations with the IT guys and gal. And it was like, oh, there is so much more that I can continue to do with this foundation that I built. So I never once felt like I've wasted any time. I never once felt like I wasted their time. They don't feel like they wasted my time. It was nothing like that. It's invaluable what I got, and that it continued to give me the confidence to just be honest with wherever I was going next, which happened to be ATG. And it was, I want to solve problems, and I don't know what that looks like necessarily, like in writing, but I know that this is a good place for me to be, and that these are the right communities for me to be with, because that passion is infinite here, and it can be infinite here. We don't have to sell them on something. We don't have to go, behind and make it plan B to maybe knock out some development stuff every night after work on our own. I would do that. I did do that. I love doing that, but I also love being in a place that I'm supported to do that during my working hours.
It's called work-life balance.
Yeah.
And you talked about Populous, one of the more renowned global architecture firms. They're doing amazing stuff, and in no way are we trying to dismiss what they're doing, but what their size enables them to have that sort of group of problem solvers that live at their core, right? And some of the smaller firms that we deal with don't have that opportunity. And seeing the chat, talking about how IT fits in with techs and fits in that. IT, the person who's installing Windows and running updates, is equally as important to the person who's signing the plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
It still needs to happen in order to make the job function. And that's where it really should be a partnership, not an expense. I love the way you put that, David, because I think a lot of folks don't see it that way. They see it, it's an overhead. And it's not overhead. You need this to get the job done, right?
Yeah.
You need gas in your car to get from point A to point B,
Yes.
or electricity.
I think it's not a
Yeah.
it's not a team mentality. And in that, I mean, that goes across disciplines too, right? Like in terms of we need really at the end of the day, what are we trying to accomplish? And it is build something for a client. And we are one team to get to that end goal in the initiation of the conception of the idea of from the client, right? From where they wanted to go and all the way to the end to see it actually built. And that goes from team of different disciplines, you know, GC all the way to the architectural team usually kicks it off, down to the teams on those teams themselves, like the architectural team and everyone that put something into it. And it didn't even have to be directly on the project. Updates for that specific software, desktop connector. The other day I had to update because I was working on a project in BIM ACC, right? All of that is wrapped into one team effort. And I think there's just that, you know, humanity in some folks and some of us where it's more of like, it's me, it's an individualism versus like that team mentality. And there's just some folks that are more of that mindset versus open to, you know, it's me, not us. You know?
Well, I'm a 10 out of 10 on the social scale. So I'm all about a team mentality. And that's also why it was hard to leave Populous, because of the team that we were building and had built and the work that we were doing. But it was, sorry, my cat is being extremely annoying now. But it was becoming more difficult to see where I fit in, you know, and having that, it was fear at first. I mean, the reason I left was pure, I was so scared, but I appreciate you saying, you know, that there was some courage behind that, Jason, because I do feel like what I'm doing now is allowing me to grow even more, and all those new challenges that I wasn't having those feelings anymore. I'm having those again, and I'm excited and inspired and eager to be working. And yes, having a cat is a requirement of working at ATT. I have two actually.
I will say though, like, yeah, just like Jason was saying, because I do want to echo that, right? Like if you would have led with fear, you would still be in the position you're in. But you encouraged yourself in some manner to take pride and move forward. And I think that's with everyone. If you're looking at where you're at currently, right, there's always that fearful moment, and that can go from anything, building your own business, to, you know, starting a new hobby or something. You're fearful. But you know, you don't get anywhere without, you don't have to take a plunge. I don't want to like over exaggerate things, but
yeah,
you know.
don't do what I did necessarily. So
well, you can and be successful in it. It's just having faith in yourself and your experiences to push that needle forward, to encourage yourself to move onward, right? I think
also,
there's, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna, I don't know that I had that. It really was a community effort, and believe it or not, it was my team at Populous that was encouraging me. And
to move on?
Not all of them. I mean, obviously they're like, don't leave ever. But the people that really—
Was this prior to you knowing about wanting to move on? Because there had to be some internal retrospect of like you thinking of wanting to move onward versus.
Yeah, I mean, I had talked about leaving like the year before. I got a job with, or I had received an opportunity to go work with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're starting this whole new program. Like all of the software they use is like 30 to 40 years old. And so they were going to rebuild all of it, and they were going to start this whole new team. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. You know, that's what I want to do. I want to be at the forefront. I want to be head on. I want to do these things. And then panic immediately set in, where I was like, I'm very comfortable at Populous, and I'm very comfortable with the work that I do. And so I turned that job down and was like, no, I think I'm actually going to stay here. I think I'm going to figure out what else I could do here. And so they knew, and I am incredibly transparent, and I have been from the beginning with everyone and all my managers and everything, that like, I do like this. I don't like this. I will do this. I don't want to do this. I understand I need to, but let's find a way to maybe not do that in the future or whatever. So
I think
everyone,
transparency is key. Like
yeah,
I'm very transparent and I speak before I think about it.
yeah, me
But
too.
there's some
Guilty.
folks that definitely methodically think of things, and Matt will be listening in on this, and that's Matt Lynn, where I'm just like, this is what I said. And I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I think there are those folks, and that leads to like a great team where you have that openness of transparency of just being able to fully have conversations openly to help you methodically think through things, right? Versus that single person. I mean, that comes from like therapy. So like
Yeah,
being
there
open
was a lot
and
of that too.
transparent, right? Like, hey, that's how you build a better self for yourself of who you truly are, is being open and having conversations with people. But that's awesome that you're able to be transparent where you were at, about, your endeavors versus like that fear of being too transparent, where then you're like, well, if you're looking elsewhere, they push you to
Oh,
go
Yeah,
look elsewhere.
just
Yeah.
go. You're
Yeah.
not fitting into the mold, and
yeah.
that's sort of ridiculous. We've been talking a lot about the predictive index here at ATG.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else listening in has seen this before, where you can go through and sort of figure out your identity type, your personality type, because everybody's different, right? So we've been going through this, and I took it a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, this is silly, whatever. But then my results were presented to me a couple weeks ago. This is here a couple of years later. I'm like, holy crap, this is me. This is true. Jason from 2 years ago still feels this way. Maybe there's something to this. And now, like, I want to give it to my wife. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's the operations manual for me.
Yeah.
Talk to me this way.
I
Don't
did
talk
show
to me
my
that way.
wife. I
Give me
did
this
show my wife.
opportunity. And seeing that as part of a team where we can say, oh, this is how Michael works. Well, this is how Alex works. This is how my boss works. And it allows the team to work better. And I think the strategy is something that more firms should employ, because we are all different, and that mold that's been set in this industry for years and years and years is, well, you go here, you go to school, you get the stamp, you do this, and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. That ladder has been, made out of concrete for years and years. So how do we fix that? And how do we work better? Because people are being more made aware of actually having a personality,
Yeah.
and there's life and work, and you're supposed to balance them. Like, wait a minute, it's not an 80-hour a week grind anymore, and you give your paycheck, and that cycle needs to
Yeah.
change in order to make the human experience more livable.
Well, that's why I like to say I'm not climbing the ladder anymore. I'm on a rope swing.
There you go. That's a rope swing.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily going up, but I'm moving and I love it. And I wanted to go back. I saw someone mention in here, like, try being a tradesperson. My husband, who philosophy and English, he's a poet, he's a wonderful guy. He's a plumber, and he gets treated like crap every day. He goes into people's houses and he's doing an incredible service for them. And some people very grateful. Again, don't get me wrong. But there are some people who he'll ask about a book on their bookshelf, and they'll look at him like why would you ask about a book? And then he'll start talking about some philosopher that he knows everything about. And they're just like, oh shit, like, wasn't expecting that, And to me, that's what I love about everyone, is that, sure, maybe on the surface you're a plumber or a doctor or whatever, but like, there's no way to know what the heck everyone is doing and what they enjoy. And I love that. Like, I love that I am also with someone who is not defined by their title or their job. Like, neither of us feel like your work has to be your passion is a thing, like capitalist propaganda, like we're here for enjoying what we're doing. And he enjoys what he does because he is providing something to people who need it and who really appreciate what he's doing when they stop and think about it. And so going back to like what you were saying, Jason, like being the person who's fixing the copier, like that person doesn't get thanked, here's my other cat. Yep, this is the orange one. Being the person who's fixing the copier, you get dismissed, but every single architect needed to print their set out, Bluebeam. I understand we're going to talk about Bluebeam, but at some point, like, it really truly does take everyone to make the world go round. And I'm so grateful to be part of an experience that is supportive of that. And that I love. Yep, Cat made a cameo. Her name's Cricket. So I just am super grateful to have found a place, in a place in the large scale of a sense, not just ATG, but just like large scale of being in a mindset where I don't have to be an art teacher to feel like I'm surviving. Because that's what I said, my favorite job, if I could do anything, would be an art teacher. And I love what I do now. And I still I make art, and I do that on my own. And I don't have to have the title of art teacher to have a relationship with art. Or I don't have to have the title of architect to have a relationship with architecture. I don't have to be a designer, which that was like the biggest thing for me, was walking away from, it's not going to say this on your LinkedIn. You know that, right? Like, it's no longer going to say populist. Like, it's no longer going to say XYZ. You're the president of this, you're the this or that. Like, I really had to understand what my motivations were, and it's solving problems. And I love that. And I love being adjacent to an industry, the whole AEC industry, that has people like this. I love it. I love it so much. So
well, that's great to hear. And I'm really impressed that you were able to figure this out, this early in life. Some people have that midlife crisis, or they have that point of their career, like, what the heck am I doing every day? And to be able to harness that energy and know sort of how to deal with that early on is just going to make your career even better as you continue through the life, assuming that you don't win Powerball. And if you do, don't forget about me.
And just it's like a quality of life thing, right? Like, finding it out at some point in your life, and regardless of age, early, young, wherever you are in your career, just feeling fulfilled, right? I think that comes back to fulfillment and how you lead life. It does have a ripple effect outside of work. Your quality of life inside of work ripples out to how you are perceived and how you engage life outside. And I think that's a huge perspective of, there's never a point in time that you can't switch what you're doing and pivot. It's just like you were saying, that fear that most folks have of leaping into it. I think it's coming a norm now with the ability to switch and do different things, but be encouraged, if you're listening to this, to take if you need to take a little, just toe step into it, then do that, to feel encouraged to, move outside of your box that you may feel stuck in.
And
Absolutely.
I highly recommend doing that in your personal life first before quitting your job and deciding you're going to go do something else. So.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, Alix. This conversation has been more than what I expected. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that I've been able to talk with you, and I'm glad that you're able to share your story with us all today. And for everybody else listening on, thanks for taking a part of our Espresso Yourself series. We've got a few more guests lined up. So every other week we'll be doing this sort of conversational series, but we'll get back to our technical content next week. So as always, you can reach out to us at any time on our LinkedIn channel or LinkedIn group for Morning Coffee Review or anything else. And yes, next week is 4th of July, so there won't be one.
I was about to say, we'll be right back into Express Yourself because we
got a holiday coming up on a Tuesday, which is kind of nice. So everyone, be safe, keep all your fingers, keep all your toes, enjoy your barbecue, enjoy your freedom, be safe. And thanks again, Alix. Thanks again, Michael. Thanks again, ATG and DJ CJ. We will see you all next time.
Thanks, everyone.